There's a lot of videos and articles on the internet that recommend horror films for people who want to get into the genre, and most are pretty spot on. But, at least to my knowledge, there aren't many that recommend what films to see next, and that's a shame. Horror is a diverse and nuanced genre that expands far past the Halloweens, Evil Deads, and Get Outs of the world. And once you develop particular tastes and preferences, it can be overwhelming when you're trying to figure out where to go next. But what is an intermediate horror film? Well, it depends. Ask yourself these questions. Of the so-called beginner horror films, which did you enjoy and why? Do you like your horror silly and gory, or cerebral and serious? Does it matter to you if you get scared or not? If you want my opinion, at the end of the day, an intermediate horror film is one that shows you something new when you think you already have it figured out. For me personally, that moment was during my freshman year of high school. I'd seen a whole slew of the Friday the 13th and Halloween films, as well as a bunch of Stephen King adaptations. For all intents and purposes, I thought I knew all there was to know when it came to horror. Then, on a whim, I flipped on my Xbox 360, booted up the Netflix app, and watched Dario Argento's Opera. My mid-pubescent mind was blown by the film's stylish cinematography, gruesome violence, in-your-face use of heavy metal music, and surreal atmosphere. The film showed me that horror could be so much more than what I'd previously understood it as. So, where does that leave us? Of course, I can't possibly know your own personal tastes or experiences, but I can suggest a few congruences. That is to say, if you like a certain film, I'm confident I can recommend something that's similar, but just spicy enough to help you see this wonderful genre in a new light. All of these suggestions are great films for very different reasons, and I hope at least one of them will help you find what you're looking for. John Carpenter's Halloween is a classic for a reason. It utilized many filmmaking techniques that have held up marvelously over time, and it's still the gold standard when it comes to the American slasher film. However, if we take a trip across the pond to our friends in Italy, we'll find that they had their own style of stalk and slash films. The Italian Giallo is a genre that I've already spoken about too much on this channel, so I won't go into its history too much. But I will make the assertion that Dario Argento's Deep Red is to the Giallo what John Carpenter's Halloween is to the slasher. The story follows a pianist who witnesses a murder, becomes obsessed with solving it, and soon finds himself in a race to do so before he is killed himself. The film showcases inventive kills, stylish cinematography, and an iconic score by the Italian progressive rock band Goblin. However, it also injects a bit of social commentary, colorful characters, and a riveting mystery into the mix. In fact, like with most of Argento's early gialli, Deep Red focuses as much on the plot as it does the kills. This film not only contextualizes Halloween and the many slashers to follow it, but functions as an excellent gateway into the world of Italian horror. Evil Dead 2 is a special film. Sam Raimi's seamless fusion of screwball comedy and horror has transcended its status as a cult favorite and made its way into the mainstream, and for good reason. It's a remarkably creative film that unabashedly leans into its own silliness to create something that is simply put, charming. If you're looking for more of the same, then you can of course go right to the sequel, Army of Darkness, as well as the TV series Ash vs. Evil Dead. Both harken back to the magic of Evil Dead 2, but are, at the end of the day, just more of the same. That's by no means a harsh criticism, but if you want a zany, gory horror comedy that's, in my opinion, even more off the wall and unhinged, then we have to take a trip to the other side of the globe. There, in New Zealand, we'll find another director who would go on to make a critically and financially successful trilogy of films after starting off as a horror director. Peter Jackson's Dead Alive follows a young man whose mother is bitten by a Sumatran rat monkey. After passing away and returning to life as a zombie, he struggles to keep her hidden even after she begins eating the residents of their small town. Dead Alive is famous for being incredibly gory, and trust me, it is. However, I find the film's tone and characters to be just as memorable. There's an inherent mean-spiritedness on display here. However, it's never cruel and is always played for laughs. The movie also sports a bevy of interesting characters, all with their own unique quirks. There's the scheming uncle, the overbearing mother, an especially unsanitary morgue employee, and of course, one kung fu fighting priest.
I kick ass for the Lord!
That said, this film is not for the squeamish. Where Raimi's film uses an excess of gore for comedic effect, Jackson's violence goes into such excruciating detail that you aren't sure whether you should laugh or throw up, especially if you aren't used to this kind of movie. Regardless, this film is undeniably charming and has an unhinged energy that never lets up, and whether you're being scared, grossed out, or having a good laugh, you're definitely having fun doing it. Jordan Peele's Get Out has a lot in common with Bernard Rose's Candyman. Chief among them is their protagonists and how their perspectives are used to communicate various important themes. Candyman follows Helen, a young graduate student who is putting together her thesis on the urban legend known as Candyman. Her ambition eventually leads her to the Chicago housing project of Cabrini Green, where she discovers that the legend may not be as fictional as she once believed. Helen, a white woman, is similar to Get Out's Chris in that she is viewed as an outsider by other characters throughout the film. However, while Chris fears being directly exploited, Helen fears becoming the exploiter, and this idea of otherness evolves throughout the film's duration. Rose's script complements this engaging social commentary with a deep exploration into urban legends and the meanings behind them that is wonderfully realized. Combine that with the film's memorable characters, excellent performances, beautiful cinematography, a haunting score by Philip Glass that you will listen to on repeat after the credits roll, as well as one of horror's most iconic villains, and you have a film that is as fun to watch as it is to analyze. In 1974, Tobe Hooper shocked moviegoers with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. The film's gruesome subject matter and apocalyptic atmosphere has garnered it a well-deserved status within the horror canon. Of course, there's a lot that goes into what makes the film work so well, but I don't think I'm exaggerating when I point to the significance of Leatherface and his cannibal family. They were horror antagonists unlike what audiences were accustomed to at the time. In its wake, the slasher genre began to take shape. However, the gritty, almost documentary-like aesthetic of the film was rarely attempted during that period. Madmen, stalkers, and serial killers came and went, and as great as a lot of these films were, they were all similar to a certain degree. John McNaughton's Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer not only deviates from the slasher boom it was made during, but manages to create a film that is genuinely deserving of the quote, disturbing description it usually receives. And we're not talking about disturbing violence here. Sure, there's a pretty nasty murder towards the end of the film, and its gruesome shot-on-video familicide is all kinds of unsettling, but for the most part, the film actually shows a lot of restraint, because the most disturbing thing about this film isn't its violence or even its subject matter. It's the main character. Michael Rooker gives a career performance that is worthy of all the praise it has received over the years, and it's his conviction in tandem with the screenplay that draws you in and brings you dangerously close to empathizing with him. Because even when he's at his worst, the film doesn't shy away from putting all his complexities on display. He's an evil person, but there's more to him. He has the same problems that you and I have. You and I may think we are worlds different from a man like Henry, but the film posits that the gap may not be as wide as we think. I won't go down the rabbit hole that line of questioning inevitably leads to, but it is a nuanced perspective that makes Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer essential horror viewing. Now that we have that major downer out of the way, I thought it'd be nice to end this video on something a little more light. We were inundated with supernatural haunting movies throughout the 2010s. Think The Conjuring, Annabelle, Insidious, Paranormal Activity, and the like. Some were decent, others were not as good. But all of them took their subject matter rather seriously, and while that's fine, there's plenty of room within the genre to experiment and get a little crazy. Thankfully, a man named Nobuhiko Obayashi did just that in 1977 with the film Hausu. Contrary to the rest of this video, I don't want to explain too much. That might sound like a cop-out, but I feel that dissecting this film here would be a lot like dissecting a joke. It'd ruin all the fun. However, I will say that the filmmakers embrace a sense of camp that is truly of its own kind, and out of the nearly 500 horror films I have logged on Letterboxd, I can honestly say I've never seen anything like Hausu. So if there's one film from this list you go and seek out, make it this one. And that's my list. Keep in mind that this isn't a top 5, nor are these films ranked in any way. But if you've already watched the classics and want to know where to go next, I think these are some fantastic stopping points. But enough for me, what do you think? If people get through their introductory course in horror, where should they go next? Leave your picks for your Horror 201 course in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, peace.